Hello there, everybody. It's Wednesday, and that means only one thing. It's time now for Supernatural News here on Darkness Radio. And being it's Supernatural News on a Wednesday, we need a co-host, so we bring in the one, the only, the BCB, the big cuddly bear himself, Beer City Bruiser. Hey, Bruiser.
Hello, Tim. Another Wednesday, another paranormal experience for us today, huh?
Yes, indeed. And you know, we have some very interesting stories today. We're also going to do some Parashare of a different sort. I found an article of some scary stories.
Oh, okay.
By the way, folks, you are really slacking out there. I want some of your experiences, and it's real easy to do. We want to do Parashare, folks. We really want to follow up on your stories, and it's easy to do. You just email me at tim@darknessradio.com, or you give us a call at 651-300-4977. Leave us a message. It's a 3-minute loop at that number. So if you can't tell it in 3 minutes or under, you just call back. You leave the remainder of your story on there. I'll stitch it together, and we'll play your message here on the air. And, we'll respond to it as well. We're not just going to play the message on the air. If you want our opinions on your story, we'll give you our opinions as well, as much as our opinions are, Bruiser.
I get messages every day from people saying how they're loving the show and they want to send their Parashare, and I'm always like, send it.
Yes.
Tim and I would love to hear it. We love hearing other people's experiences.
Yes, well, we're lacking in that department, so we need your Parashare stories. We want to share your Parashare stories here on the air, and you know what? If we get a really good one, we may even bring back some theater of the mind.
Ooh.
You know that? I've got an uncle who inspired me to get into radio here. His name is Robert, and we may have, I may convince my Uncle Robert to voice some of those. He's got a voice like silk.
Oh, he's got a radio voice, huh?
He does. He's the guy
who have a face for radio too.
I won't comment on that because I'd like to be able to visit Green Bay one of these days.
And he's your favorite uncle.
He is. He's one of my favorites. Yeah, he's the one who got me into the Marx Brothers and Laurel and Hardy, and he's the one who kept me laughing in my childhood. So
that's good.
Now I believe he's a circuit court judge in Alouez.
Okay.
Yeah. He's had an interesting life, an interesting career.
That's a span from radio DJ to circuit court judge. But you know what? With his silky voice, he probably makes the criminals feel better. Like, I sentence you to 30 days in the jail. Like, oh, yes, please.
Well, he doesn't go Barry White on the bit. I mean, he's not trying to sex them up before they get in jail. That happens after they get there.
When I think of silky voices, that's what I think of.
I know he is trying to, he's asked me quite a bit about the new world of podcasting. He does know quite a bit about it, but I think he's interested in launching his own podcast. So if he does so, we'll promote it here so you can get an idea of where my inspiration comes from.
And then if they send enough Parashares and we do Theater of the Mind, they'll be able to hear it anyways.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to have my Uncle Robert voice some of those because I'd like to expose his talent. He is very talented. I remember seeing him at KROC in Rochester. I remember hearing some of his work from his private studio, and very talented man. So I hope I can convince him to do a couple of voiceovers. So
I bet he will. It's in his system. It's in his blood.
It does get in the blood. It's hard to get it out. That's for sure.
When you have an artistic outlet, whatever it may be, it gets in your blood, and you got to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if it's just a little bit here and there. I mean, come on, Tim, you know that. If you weren't doing this full time, you'd get that itch every once in a while.
Oh yeah. I've had, let's just call it breaks in my career at times where, other employers might call it you're fired, but or you have to leave a job, one or the other. You walk away or you get let go, and then you come back, and nothing makes you more hungry for something when you have to leave a job and then have to find a new one.
That's 100% true.
Yeah, and you realize, I believe the song is "You don't know what you got till it's gone." Mm-hmm. And yeah, when you realize you don't have something, you begin to starve for it. And yep. I think the longer you're away from something and you come back to it, you realize what a gift it truly is. And you really do hang on to it and cherish it for what it is too.
Yeah, I agree. I've recently experienced that. So
Yeah.
But then I found this love, and the fans are so nice to me and welcoming, and you were such a good leader and teaching me all this that it's ignited a new passion.
I'm glad it has, because you truly are, and I'm being honest and sincere here. I'm not kissing some bruiser butt here. You truly are a gift. I got to tell you, it's more than just a pleasant surprise. It's been a pleasant gift to myself and to the Darkness Radio listeners. I think I couldn't have known. It couldn't have worked out any better.
No, it was working out great. I love it. Like I said, ignited a new passion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is great, because it just proves no matter how old you get, there's still passions out there. I always tell my kids, follow your gut, follow your passions.
Yep.
And you never know what a passion could be, so try it.
That's true. That's true. We got some interesting stories this week, Bruiser. We've got everything from space making astronauts stupider, if that's a thing, to some, like I said, some Parashare stories from an article. We'll give you a story that, by the way, if you guys aren't subscribing to Stitcher Premium, boy, oh boy, are you missing out on Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals on True Crime Tuesday. We chopped it up yesterday, and there were some stories in there that will either make you curl your hair or curl your toes, depending on...
My Twitter has exploded with just people laughing out loud at what we did. Like, I knew I had fun. Both of us had fun doing it, but I didn't know the fans that fun would translate to the fans as much as it did. But I've gotten 10 or 15 tweets and messages about how this is fantastic and they're having a great time and they love it and the Stitcher Premium is worth it because of this episode. And I was like, hey, it's just Tim and I having fun.
Yeah, it was a fun episode. It was good yesterday. But we're going to give you a story from yesterday's True Crime Tuesday, from yesterday's Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals, having to do with the Church of Satan and not the Church of Satan. I'm sorry, Satanic.
Yep.
Satanic Temple.
The temple. Yep.
I mixed that up. I'm sorry. The Yellow Brick Road has been found. We'll find out about that today. And scientists have proven that sometimes science isn't sciencey. It's just plain stupid. We'll find that out at the end of the program, and I'll tell you why. But first, Bruiser, we're going to talk about a new high-res version of a 1970s photograph that's been revealed. I know from having paged through certain magazines that there wasn't such a thing as a high-res photograph. You never did get a fully good high-res photograph in some men's magazines, at least from what I could tell at the age of 13 or 14. But
they always had the blush area around where it looked like there was a glow around them.
Yes. Yeah. Everything looked like it had been smeared with a mirrored Vaseline. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah. But there is a new high-res version of a 1970s UFO photograph that's been revealed. It was taken from a plane in 1971, and the image shows what appears to be a metallic saucer flying through the air. Having been the subject of intrigue and debate for several decades, this fascinating UFO photograph has recently been brought back into the limelight thanks to enthusiast Esteban Carranza, who was able to secure the original image and publish a high-resolution version online. The original was captured by the National Geographic Institute of Costa Rica in 1971 when aerial photographer Sergio Loaiza used an automated camera to take snaps from 10,000 feet. Nothing was seen at the time, but when the photographs were examined afterwards, one of them included a mysterious metallic disc that nobody was able to explain. UFO researchers Ricardo... I got to do that thing where I got to look closer at the photograph. Ricardo Vilches, Dr. Richard Haynes, and Dr. Jacques Vallée later played down the likelihood that the image showed anything otherworldly. However, the picture has still remained a topic of discussion and debate in the intervening years. Reading's hard, Bruiser. It's hard. This latest high-resolution version, which was obtained by Carranza after he tracked down the original technician who was in charge of the camera in 1971, shows the anomalous disc is in more detail than ever before. Whether or not it can prove the authenticity of the shot, however, remains to be seen. It's an interesting shot. I'll give it that. And it is.
It's crazy how much stuff back then people didn't notice right away because you had to wait for film to be developed.
That's true.
So like this, he said that he was taking multiple pictures, didn't know about it, they had developed it, and there it is. Like, can you imagine how many of those pictures back then were like that?
True.
And I wonder why they're not high-resing all those older pictures that are in question. You know, we have the technology today.
Well, you know, when you look at this photo, and if you go to Twitter and you look up at Watson Welch, WELCH, it almost looks photoshopped. It looks like you're looking at the left coast or west coast of Africa, and it almost looks like somebody superimposed a metallic disc off the left coast of Africa.
Okay.
I mean, there's that much detail to it.
Really?
Yeah, and that's
so it's at what? It's on Twitter
at Watson Welch, and David Welch is the keeper of that Twitter account. Let me see, what date did he posted this on May 7th. Okay. So
I'm gonna take a look at it.
Yeah, at 9:46 p.m. The tweet, or the twats as we like to say, says a new high-resolution scan has been made of the clearest photo of a UFO ever taken, captured by an automated mapping camera during aerial photography above Costa Rica in 1971. David Welch. It's a black and white photo, by the way. So you clearly see things in the topography.
The detail on the UFOs.
Yeah, isn't it?
You can tell that it
pops.
Top
Yeah,
shape. Yeah, it does. It does.
And you can tell there's depth there in the photograph.
Yeah, and I like how you can see a house or something like that on land. It looks like a farm or something.
Yep. I mean, it's really high res. Really.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying though, but you can see it looks like it's photoshopped. It looks like someone went, here's the coastline of whatever. Let's just put this right here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
but the detail on the UFO is amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting deal. So yeah, if you're on the twatter, go ahead and look up at Watson Welch, like Bruiser just did. The entry is May 7th. And see it for yourself. It's an interesting photo, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely high res.
Yeah,
just the detail on that farm you can see too. You know, I was like, wow.
Yeah, yep.
But I can see what you're saying, where it looks like someone just put that there. You know, and that's the problem with high res photos. In the details, it adds that sticker like quality to something that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, it looks.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it looks like things are inserted into a photo via Photoshop, or maybe it's a little too good to be true.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing photo, nonetheless.
Yes, it is. We move on. It turns out that space warps astronauts' brains, leaving concerning changes even when they're back on Earth. I think it's this scientist study's way of saying that you get dumb when you go to space.
Lack of gravity.
I guess. Lack of gravity makes your brain float in funny places. Astronauts' brains are changing as a byproduct of the zero gravity conditions, according to this article. Side effects of space travel are under close watch as governments and private industry ramp up efforts to take people off-world. That's what you get for hanging out with billionaires, I guess.
Yeah.
Weightlessness affects the paravascular spaces, the pockets in brain tissue that serve as channels for fluids. Well, that can't be good.
No.
15 astronauts had 2 MRI scans before missions to space and 4 after they had returned. Among the astronaut cohort, we found that novice astronauts showed an increase in total paravascular space volume from pre to post flight, the paper wrote. Among the astronaut cohort, we found that novice astronauts showed an increase. Oh, I just read that. See what happened? I went to space.
Threw you off. Scooby threw you. Tim, how many times have you been to space? Come on now.
15. Yeah, you never saw me, but I was.
Your parabella spaces are growing on you.
Yeah, my paravasculars have been crunched. Experienced astronauts showed no change, but had enlarged brain damage or drainage. See, I have the brain damage, but had enlarged brain drainage tunnels going into the study. This could mean when space alters the brain, the change is permanent or takes considerable time to revert to its past self. Science Alert, which I get on my doorstep at 5 a.m. every Monday morning, reported that it is still unclear whether the change is significant enough to be considered a major health risk for aspiring space travelers, as a commercial space industry brings paying customers with less training to space. It'll be important to know the effects of leaving Earth. This was the first study of its kind, according to the paper published in Scientific Reports. Going to and returning space is an extreme physical ordeal, they stress. At liftoff, rockets need to reach Earth's exit velocity, about 11 kilometers a second. I don't have a conversion. A lot of kilometers. Yeah, I don't have a conversion rate for you. I'm not
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, my brain has been crunched by space, too. While in space, astronauts exercise for 2 hours a day to combat the physical stress that microgravity has on the body. Working out is also a proven solution to prevent astronauts from passing out on return from space.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, you can just take a nap on your way back. SpaceX's Starship is scheduled to take Japanese billionaire and space tourist Yusaku Miyazawa around the moon in 2023. In a test run, the Starship re-entered Earth at 19,000 miles an hour.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, that'll screw your brain up a little bit.
Yeah,
that's
among other things.
That's a little harsher than the scrambler at the fair.
It is, just a little bit.
Although it may be only a mile or two off. I always felt like that was going about 18,950 miles an hour.
I always feel that the scrambler was just a way for NASA to find cheap ways to find new astronauts.
I think you're right.
Because that's basically what they put them through when they're getting them ready to go into space.
Yeah, they put you in the scrambler, and if you don't puke, you're good.
Yep,
you're going up. Yeah. Early space programs are concerned with the health risks that come with long trips to space. Cosmonaut Valery Polyakov, you can Polyakov all you want, just don't do anything bad in your pants, volunteered for a mission to study the effects of zero gravity on the human body. He spent 437 consecutive days in space, orbited the Earth 7,000 times, and is alive today at age 80.
Wow.
Yeah.
That guy's literally been around the world.
I wonder how
7,000 times.
Yeah. I wonder how he looks. You remember that story we read a couple weeks ago about how being in space makes you ugly?
Yeah. And doesn't it make you taller too, or something like that? Like, it does a bunch of stuff to you.
It does, yeah. It does a lot of weird things. I wonder if he came back from space and his wife was like, "Ew, no, just back away from me, please. I can't. I just can't. You repulse me."
And he probably went, "Who are you?"
"I don't recognize you. I
don't know who you are.
My brain fluids aren't so good." Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea there. I got to bring up the old computer here on our system. I want you to hear these sounds, Bruiser.
Okay.
Let's just say that we're going to hear sounds from space on this telecast.
I like sounds from space.
Did I say telecast? Telecast. My God, how old am I? Yeah, on this here telecast, we're going to hear sounds from space. Specifically, it may be a sound you've heard before, Bruiser. This is a sound from a black hole.
You okay?
Yeah, sound from a black hole. This may actually relate to yesterday's Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. I'm not sure.
It may be.
See what I'm saying? Sound from a black hole.
I gotcha.
The guy who almost got shot yesterday.
The guy who got shot and jumped off a 2-story building?
Yeah. He was trying to yodel in the canyon too, wasn't he?
No, he refused to yodel, remember?
That's right. That's why he almost
That's why she shot him.
Yeah, but she shot him. There's an article from CNN this past week. Millions of elusive black holes hide in plain sight, but across the Milky Way galaxy, only giving away their presence occasionally through bursts of X-ray light when they feed on stars. they feed on stars like.
I like how they're trying to make it sound like the UFO is the next Bigfoot. Like it's so elusive.
Yeah,
we'll never see black holes.
Yeah, not that much.
Like we hear about them at least once a week. We have a story on black holes, so they're not that elusive.
Yeah, they're really not. Astronomers have been able to pin down the locations of 8 rare pairings of black holes. I think there are some people that are walking around with a pair of black holes. I'm just saying.
It's the start of a really bad joke.
It really is. And the stars orbiting them. There's a trial going on with Johnny Depp.
Yeah?
Yeah.
With a lot of black holes in it.
He was paired up with a couple of black holes.
There's some stars circling those black holes, and now they're on trial.
Yeah. Thanks to the X-ray echoes they release. They're X-ray echoes. Previously, there were only 2 known pairs emitting X-ray echoes in our galaxy. Black hole binaries occur when the celestial. Oh, it's this thing again. It's the
phenomenon.
Yeah. Are orbited by a star, which they sometimes use to siphon gas and dust as a snack.
You gotta love eating gas and dust.
Yeah.
I knew somebody that released gas and dust every time that he'd sit down.
Really? The echoes have been converted into sound waves that just may keep you awake at night, it says here. The findings from the study are published Monday in the Astrophysical Journal and could help scientists understand how black holes evolve. It says here, this is the header. It says Anatomy of a Black Hole Outburst.
Thank God this is in a science magazine and not like Mad Magazine or something.
Yeah, exactly. The research team developed an automated tool dubbed the reverberation machine. Wasn't that Gloria Estefan's second band after Miami Sound Machine? It was the reverberation machine. Yeah.
After the big bus accident, that's what they became, wasn't it?
The reverberation machine. To search for echoes from black hole binaries and satellite data. During their study, the researchers used the reverberation machine to look through data.
Do you think those researchers giggle as much as we do every time we say black hole or reverberation?
I think they do. I think
they have to, right?
Yeah, I think they name this stuff like that on purpose just to get a good laugh. They use the reverberation machine to look through data collected by NASA's X-ray telescope called the Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer, or NICER.
It's nicer. See, like I said, they got to be in a room giggling like we do. They're like, hey, let's come up with an acronym where it spells nicer.
They do. They're just making, pardon my language, they're making shit up now. Which is part of the International Space Station. We see new signatures of reverberation in 8 sources, they said, for study author Jingyi Wang is his name.
So wait. Wang is investigating reverberations from 2 black holes that are talking to each other.
Yes, he is. You can't make it up.
Wang's a black hole researcher. Okay.
Yes, he is. There's a little inference there.
The 4th grader in us is coming out right now.
Yes, it is.
You said Wang.
I said Wang, and that he's into the black holes. A graduate student he is a graduate student at MIT. He said in a statement, the black holes range in mass from 5 to 15 times the mass of the sun, and they're all in binary systems with normal low-mass sun-like stars. After collecting the 8 echoes, the researchers compared them to see how a black hole changes when it releases an outburst of X-rays. A similar portrait emerged from the 8 binary systems. When black holes pull material from an orbiting star, they can launch bright jets of particles that go streaming into space at near the speed of light.
Black holes are emitting large streams, huh?
Yeah.
They're just going all over space, aren't they?
Yeah, they're just flashing it all over. The research.
I'm glad Wang's on top of it.
Well, he is. He's not.
I'm sorry.
He's not letting it out of his sight. The research team noticed that during this process, the black hole will release a final high energetic flash before it transitions to a low energy state. So basically, it just lets it fly and then it collapses.
Yep. One shot and it's done.
Yeah. When that last blast occurs, Bruiser,
it rolls over and goes to sleep.
Yes, it does. Then it goes back to the table for more Mexican. It could mean the black hole's highly energetic plasma ring or corona is releasing energetic particles before it disappears, it says here. Astronomers can apply this finding to larger supermassive black holes, which function as engines at the center of the galaxies and can shoot out particles that can shape galactic formation.
Of course.
Big formations that clog your plumbing.
Yep. Yeah. I've formed some galactic formations.
Have you?
Depending on what I've eaten the night before or drank. I've had a few Coronas and disappeared.
The role of the black holes in galactic evolution is an outstanding question in modern astrophysics, study author Erin Kara, who is too embarrassed to give her real name, I guess, assistant professor of physics at MIT, said in a statement. Interestingly, these black hole binaries appear to be mini supermassive black holes. At least that's what the doctor tried to say in a statement to try and impress you. So you wouldn't say, hey, I have a massive super black hole back there. Would you like to see how wide it is? And so by understanding the outbursts in these small nearby systems, we can understand how similar outbursts in supermassive black holes affect the galaxies in which they reside. Would you like to hear what these supermassive black holes sound like, Bruiser?
I would. I'm curious.
All right.
What's this reverberation we're going to hear?
Yep. Here we go. There's no sound to this.
So it's a black hole that doesn't emit sound.
It's a black hole that doesn't emit sound. Wait a minute. There's got to be more than that. That doesn't sound like anything. I'm playing it. Oh, wait. Hold on a second here. Let's try it again. All right. Here's the sound of a massive black hole. Are you ready?
Yeah.
It's official. It's a silent but deadly.
I was just saying, I didn't hear anything. I smell something, but I didn't hear anything.
I smell something, but there's nothing there.
They're spending billions of dollars on this research, and this is what they give us?
I played it.
This reminds me of when I was single.
Maybe we just move on.
I think so.
I tried.
You did.
I tried to give you the sound of a black hole, but it just didn't want to. It didn't want to produce. Is that a good way of putting it?
It is. It's a fantastic way.
All right. Anywho.
All right, let's move on.
We'll move on to the next story. Evidently, it gets a little shy when it gets around people, and, we just don't want to produce. We'll call it that. We'll move on to the next story, shall we?
Let's do it.
It is a Supernatural News Wednesday. We won't produce any sounds from our black holes, but we will move on to the next story. Our next story has to do... actually, you know what? Now might be a good time for a break, since we can't get our black holes to produce sounds.
Since the black hole's shy and puckered up and kept it to itself.
Yeah, since we can't get our black holes to do anything, let's take a break, shall we?
Sounds good.
When we come back, the Satanic Temple has decided that it needs its voice heard too in Boston, so we'll talk about that. The Russian state is accusing Ukraine of using witches against them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. Exorcism.
Anything for war.
Anything, yep. Anything for war. The Yellow Brick Road is real, Bruiser. We'll find out where
it's in Kansas.
Well, it's not in a place you'd expect. We'll tell you about where the Yellow Brick Road really is. And scientists, it turns out, aren't that smart. We'll tell you about it at the end of the program and why exactly maybe you shouldn't put all your science eggs in the science basket. That's coming up at the end of the program. You're listening to Supernatural News Wednesday here on the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the best in paranormal podcasting. This is Supernatural News on a Wednesday on Darkness Radio. I'm Tim Dennis along with Beer City Bruiser. And, we read the story on Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals. And you may say, well, Tim, how does that have to do with anything with the paranormal? Well, by gosh, it has to do with the Satanic Temple. The Satanic Temple. They're back at it again, Bruiser.
And everyone needs to know, Satanic Temple is not the same as Church of Satan.
Right. They're different. They're different entities. It's like the Catholic Church and the Lutheran Church.
Exactly.
Yeah. They both worship the same entity, but they're different chapters.
And they go about it different ways.
Yeah.
The story shows exactly how different the two of them are.
Well, the Church of Satan is more laid back. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah, they are actually. They're not a, hey, look over here at me, where the temple is more like, if you have it, we have it too. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. If you're going to get those rights, well, we're going to get those rights.
Yeah,
but
if you get to do it, then I get to do it too.
Right. And they kind of are like, well, you know what? If you're going to have rights to do that, well, we want a statue on the front lawn of your courthouse. Yep. Actually, there's a really funny bit that Reno 911 did. I don't know if you remember the bit. It's
where they go into the Satan church, right? Or there's someone protesting or something?
I think it wasn't it satanic? Was the Satanic Temple dropped a monument on the front?
Yes.
Yeah, on the front steps of the police headquarters or something like that.
Yeah, because they had the 10 Commandments out there.
Yes, yeah.
So they thought, well, if you have the 10 Commandments, then you have to have this. And they put the Satanic Temple's statue.
Yes, yeah.
And the Reno 911 gang's around there, and they're trying to take the 10 Commandments down, but like they're hitting it, and people are watching them like destroy it. Yeah, exactly.
And they can't move it. Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. It was pretty good. It was a pretty good bit.
The thing that makes me mad about this story, though, is I have to agree with the temple because of what you're about to read. They're in the right. I hate saying that, but they kind of are in this situation.
Yeah, if you
know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're kind of playing the a-hole game in this. Yeah,
I am. I'm
I mean, you're not, but they are. It's kind of the if you can do it, I can do it too.
They're playing what I call the younger. I came up with this last night. It's the younger brother role. Because I'm the oldest in my family. I don't know if you are, but I'm the oldest.
Yeah.
And anytime that I got something, my younger brother had to have it too.
Yeah.
So it was always, so if my dad would take me to a baseball game, well, then my younger brother would, we'd get home. Hey, I got to go too next time.
Yep.
Like, no, This is my time with dad. And so that's why they're like the younger brother syndrome.
Yeah, it is. It's very much a younger brother syndrome. That's a better way of putting it than the a-hole game. Yeah, that's yeah.
It's the younger sibling, because let's not take out girls out of that either, because my sister was just as bad.
Yeah,
she still is.
Yeah, you're right.
I bought a house. She had to buy a house.
Yeah. You put it much more eloquently than I did. The Satanic Temple in Massachusetts is requesting that Boston fly its flag after the Supreme Court ruled last week that the city had violated the First Amendment rights of a Christian group when it denied them flying their flag outside of City Hall. According to a copy of the request tweeted by the Satanic Temple, the group asking Boston to fly the flag for Satanic Appreciation Week on July 23rd to the 29th. I didn't know that there was one, but
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that the dates are later in July, because my birthday's in July, and I was like, great, my birthday's going to fall right in there, but it doesn't, so I'm happy.
Well, at least the candles are hotter on Satanic Appreciation Week on your cake. I'm just saying. The Satanic Temple said its request was in response to the recent ruling. CNN reached out to the Satanic Temple for comment, but of course, it didn't immediately hear back.
No,
you don't want to add fuel to the fire, so to speak. A spokesperson from Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's office said that the office was carefully reviewing the court's decision and its recognition of city government's authority to operate similar programs, adding, as we consider next steps, we will ensure that future City of Boston programs are aligned with this decision. Boston, according to the city's website, no longer accepts flag-raising applications as of October 19th, 2021. How convenient.
Thanks a lot, Temple.
Yeah, way to ruin it, Satanic Temple. The push comes after the nation's highest court unanimously ruled on Monday that Boston had violated the First Amendment rights of a group seeking to briefly raise a Christian flag atop a city flagpole outside of City Hall as a part of a city program celebrating Boston's greater community. The court said the flag display amounted to a public forum, and because many other groups were allowed to raise their flags in celebration of the Boston community, the city could not discriminate on the basis of the religious group's viewpoint without violating the Constitution. We conclude that, on balance, Boston did not make the raising and flying of private groups' flags a form of government speech, Justice Stephen Breyer wrote. The Satanic Temple, according to its Twitter account, was founded in 2013 and is the only federally recognized international non-theistic religious satanic organization, which we talked about yesterday is kind of surprising that the Church of Satan was not.
Right, you said that wasn't LaVey's intentions.
Wasn't LaVey's bag. He wasn't.
He was the older brother. He was the.
Yes. Yeah.
He's cool with everything. Here's his beliefs. I wrote it down. You can follow him if you want.
That's right.
Then the Temple is the younger brother that went, well, if he can do it, so can we.
We need it in writing, though. Yeah, that's exactly. You nailed it right on the head there, Bruiser. That's exactly what that was. Interestingly enough, we go from one extreme to another. We go from Satan to God and somebody's interpretation of God, although sinners will like this version much, much better than the saints. There's a Bible from 1631, which is missing a very important word.
What's the word?
Oh, I'm about to tell you, my friend. It's called the Wicked Bible, and it's dropped the word not. That's the word.
Oh.
Inadvertently encouraging adultery.
I was going to say, a lot of the 10 Commandments are thou shalt not.
Yes, there's a lot of nots in there, but this not is missing. It's considered one of the most serious blunders in publishing history, according to the University of Canterbury in New Zealand, but also one of the funniest. A Bible printed in England in 1631 left out the word not in the 7th commandment and thus instructed readers, thou shalt commit adultery. The typo caused an uproar at the time. King Charles I was not amused, resulting in the destruction of nearly all the approximately 1,000 copies in print. However, about 20 specimens of the aptly nicknamed Wicked Bible are known to have survived, and one just surfaced in New Zealand for the first time.
Oh, that's got to be worth quite a penny. And if I remember correctly, 1631, they'd actually hand set the letters to do the printing, correct?
I believe so. I'm looking at a copy. Yeah, it looks like that it's typeset. Yeah. But,
so whoever was setting those pages was probably overworked that day.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Or was just an asshole. Either way.
Yeah, probably just an asshole. Yeah.
Maybe he cheated on his wife and he's like, hey, I can get out of this.
I can make this thing work. It's a mystery. It's fascinating, and it has made it halfway around the world. Chris Jones, an associate professor in medieval studies at the university, tells The Guardian a former student brought him the copy obtained in an estate sale, and Jones is unveiling it for the first time after a few years of study and restoration work. Much debate exists about how the typo came to be, including a theory that a rival printer sabotaged the efforts of royal printer Robert Barker. Jones, however, thinks the reason is less sinister. He chalks it up to overworked copy editors. You nailed it right on the head there, Bruiser. Yep. Operating in what was then a highly competitive industry.
Well, I can believe it's competitive. Your printing presses weren't everywhere.
That's true.
That'd be cool to own one of those, though. You know, like just to have in a collection, just to go check this out. Like, I don't know. I think that piqued my interest, but I'm pretty sure they're expensive. If there's only 20 of them.
Yeah, if there's only 20 in the world, you're paying a pretty penny, my friend, to get a hold of one of those. That's for sure. We move on. We normally don't cover politics or war on this show, but this one has a bit of a paranormal slant.
I can't wait to see what Russia is about.
Well, Russia state media says it has discovered militarized Ukrainian witches. Evidently, there's not enough U.S. military budget going over to Ukraine.
So I just decided to hire a bunch of witches.
Yeah. In a recent report from a village near Luhansk, Russian journalists claimed to discover the remnants of occult rituals in a building once used by Ukrainian soldiers. The Kremlin-owned news organization RIA Novosti, I haven't heard that one, is claiming that its journalists discovered signs of black magic in a village in East Ukraine. The journalists claimed the evidence of magic was found in what it claimed was the headquarters of a Ukrainian military unit. A satanic seal was found on its wall, evoking associations with Hollywood films about evil spirits. Oh, of course.
I see a Netflix movie coming about this.
Oh, yes.
Set like 20 years in the future or 100 years in the future, where it was a Ukrainian group and they were blessed with eternal life, and now they something or other, you know.
And they're the ones that stopped the bombings.
Exactly.
Yeah. RIA said that in the report. The graffiti on the wall looks like a sigil, a kind of magical seal used for various purposes by practitioners. It's a circle with various squiggles in the middle and the word Zain, Z-E-I-N, written below it. RIA shared photos of the sigil as well as a walkthrough of the house on its Telegram channel. According to Katerina Dais, D-A-I-S, a Russian culturologist. There we go. Words is hard, Bruiser.
That's a weird word. You don't hear that too much.
Culturologist.
Like, what's your job? I'm a culturologist.
Yeah, I don't think that makes a lot of money.
No.
RIA spoke with, the sigil is a magical symbol. What it means is difficult to say for sure. In it, you can see both the inverted sign of anarchy and a part of the SS sign. They said the runezig, it is clearly visible in the extreme left sector of the circle.
The anarchy symbol and the SS symbol.
Yeah.
That spells ass. I think the Ukrainians are just having some fun with the Russians.
I think...
Right? I'm not wrong, am I?
I think she's reading into this. Now, if you look at it...
I think so too.
Yeah, if you look at it, do you see that?
No, I see the Zine.
You see the Zine.
I see...
They're just squiggles.
Yeah, it looks like runes of some sort.
Yeah.
Or like a soldier could have been bored or something.
Yeah. There's definitely
I can see how she got a cult from it, because it does look like an occult marking, but it's so hastily scribbled.
Yeah. There's no SS sign there.
It doesn't say ass anywhere.
No, it doesn't say ass anywhere. That's for sure.
And why would Ukrainians use German special forces?
Well, they have to kowtow to what Putin has said, that he's in there to get rid of Nazis.
Oh, come on.
That's the official state line.
Really?
Yeah. Putin started the whole conflict by saying that he went into Ukraine to get rid of Nazis.
So she's just using public fear to try to get her point across. Like, hey, this kind of resembles the SS symbol. So look, it's true.
Yeah.
Putin's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she says she sees part of the SS sign, the runezig. It is clearly visible, she says, in the extreme left sector of the circle, and the Hebrew letter Zain written in German, which this doesn't even make sense.
No, why would they change all that? None of this makes sense.
Right. The letter Zain written in German, meaning a sword or weapon, Dias told RIA. According to RIA, Ukrainian soldiers gathered in this place to consecrate weapons with blood magic. Among the headquarters instructions, they found a press release from the Ukrainian security forces with a story about losses in the Donbass. The story said, according to a translation provided by Google, there are lines of blood on the document, although there are no such traces anywhere else. Boy, this is a story. The video walkthrough of the location showed off the sigil and various bits of debris in the building. The camera panned over dust-covered furniture, several books, and official-looking documents. At the end of it, it focuses on a piece of paper in a laminated folder that appears to be smeared with red liquid. This could be blood. It could also be the rust of any number of other red-tinted goos. The RIA journalists feeling the need to clutch pearls over graffiti and debris left behind in a war zone calls to mind the satanic panic of the 1980s and 90s. In the U.S., a wave of fear about things like Dungeons and Dragons, heavy metal music, and daycare centers caused a wave of fear and panic. People saw demons and Satan's hand in everything. To this day, none of the thousands of accusations of satanic ritual abuse or satanic cults are substantiated. The story out of Russia is remarkably similar to American satanic panic stories. There's innocuous graffiti, the hint of something nefarious, what appears to be blood. The spray-painted symbol on the wall looks vaguely occultic, but could mean anything. The blood stains might be real, but they were discovered in a war zone, and the article itself admits they were only present in one location. It's hard to parse the truth of the RIA story. Getting good information out of a war zone is hard at the best of times, and it even is more difficult when dealing with state sources and a reputation for lies and myth-making. The witchcraft story is another in a long line of stories from Russia that attempt to frame Ukrainians as frightening fascists that must be defeated. It stands in stark contrast to stories from areas Ukraine has liberated from Russia, where journalists and authorities have discovered mass graves and evidence of war crimes inflicted by the Russian military. So there you go.
So Russia's basically trying to write its own narrative to this. Like,
it is, yeah.
It could be blood everywhere, but it's also a building that was bombed. Normally when you get bombed and there's people inside and they get hurt, there's blood.
Yeah.
And it's so far, they're not letting these journalists go in active war zones. So, of course, the Ukrainians removed the dead or the wounded or the injured, whatever it may be that caused the blood splatter, you know, and that could be, that symbol could be their way of marking buildings that it's clear. I know U.S. soldiers do that when they go into war zones or active areas of combat. They will mark the buildings with tags, and it's not a check mark or an X. You know, it's
right.
A symbol, and that symbol means something to the other soldiers, like, oh, this building's this or this build. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
yep.
I'm not trying to say that Ukraine's not using witchcraft. They could. They have every right to. But I think Russia's trying to control the narrative to say, hey, look how bad they are. They believe in Satan and witchcraft and all this.
Right. Exactly.
When really it could just be explained away as it's a war zone. Someone got injured. It splattered over the important papers. They were called to evacuate, so they marked the building, and why not to go there?
Well, what's incredibly, and again, this isn't a political opinion, this is fact. What's incredibly asinine about the excuse of Putin going in and saying he's getting rid of neo-Nazis is that there's a huge Jewish population in Ukraine.
Right.
So why would you have Jews turning into Nazis? I mean, it doesn't make sense. There's no sense to that whatsoever. So that narrative can't be played out. I mean,
he's just trying to justify his actions. It's again, like you said, not a political. We both have our own beliefs, but it's just he did something, and now he's trying to justify it with something that people can fear.
Well, and the fact of the matter is he just wants to claim what he believes was once belonging to the old USSR or the old Russia. Right. And if you just call it nation building, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what he's trying to do.
Yep. And of course the media is going to do that because it's not like America where everyone can have their own opinion and stuff. No, in communist countries, you have to do what they tell you to do, or you could die. So
well, and Russia isn't really even officially communist. They're more of a what's a good way of putting it? Even though they have elections, it's a
dictatorship,
yes,
but not a dictator.
Yeah.
A friendly dictator. I don't know how to put it either, but because it's not a democracy.
They're not a free society. They're not
exactly.
They're not a free society.
They're not what they used to be, but they're not what they could be.
Exactly. There you go. Next story is actually 22 jaw-dropping paranormal tales that people can't explain. Whether or not you believe in ghosts or ghouls, sometimes something happens that you fully can't explain, which is kind of interesting. It actually, some of these come off of a subreddit, which has some interesting stories here, so we're going to breeze through a couple of these.
Okay.
In lieu of some Parashare. And by the way, people, we want your Parashare stories. It's real easy. Just write me at tim@darknessradio.com and drop off your stories. Or you can call us, 651-300-4977. There's a 3-minute loop that you just record your stories by phone. If you can't fit it in 3 minutes, call back and leave the rest of your story. I'll stitch it together. We'll play it here on the air. And there you go. We'll even weigh in on it on the air.
Even if you're not sure if it was a paranormal event happening, tell us. We could, like you said, we'll weigh in on it. And we'll do what we do and factor in what we think and help you out.
There you go. First story, growing up, people always told me that they saw me at different places in town when I hadn't been there. When I was in high school, I took vocational classes at secondary school called the Skills Center. One day I was waiting for the bus to leave the Skills Center after my broadcasting class, and a teacher I never met ran up to me and said, "Zushiba, you need to come back to class." I didn't know her and had never been in her class. According to her, I'd been missing for the last few sessions. I tried to explain, but she seemed to know who I was, so she took me to the office, thinking I was trying to ditch class. In the office, I told the clerk my name, and sure enough, I was in that broadcasting class. I was registered under my stepdad's name. I do go by it sometimes, but it's a relatively unique name, so it's not like there would have been a random person that looks like me in her class and had the same name. Turns out I'd been in her class for the entire semester until I mysteriously stopped showing up. I had turned in work and everything. It even had my goddamn signature on it.
Oh,
doppelganger.
That's creepy.
Yep, doppelganger syndrome.
I was going to say a good old doppelganger.
Yeah, weird, huh?
What would you do if you ran into yourself? That would be. But here's a question too. Here's another question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we'd be able to recognize our doppelganger? Because how we see ourselves in the mirror isn't technically how everybody else sees us.
I don't know. I don't know
you know
how I'd react. Yeah. I don't know.
It raises an interesting question, and this isn't the first story we've heard of doppelgangers.
No, I think I'd be weirded out. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know what to think.
It'd be hard not to hug me and kiss me because I'm so cuddly.
Wow, look at you, Dalton Castle.
I'd be like, look at this handsome son of a bitch, and then this big old hug.
That's quite...
As long as it's not evil me.
Yeah, what if evil you punched you out?
What if you turned out to be evil you?
Yeah, what if you're the mirror in the mirror?
Yeah, what if you're the clone? You're the doppelganger.
Weird. Second story says, I was about 19 and my grandmother had died less than a month prior. My family was having a gathering unrelated to her passing. I couldn't sleep, so I stayed up late watching some old Nick at Night reruns on her TV. I drifted off on the couch around 2 a.m., partially wrapped in a rough green and brown handmade blanket. I woke up between 3 and 4 a.m. feeling cold and groggy. When I looked up, I saw my grandmother. "Go upstairs and sleep in a proper bed," she said. "Get moving." I picked up my blanket and dragged it behind me up the steep stairs. She looked better than when I had seen her alive, but equally as insistent and daunting. I didn't dare refuse. This was kind of the thing she would do regularly before she passed, so it didn't occur to me until the next morning that she was, in fact, still dead.
I 100% believe that. I've had my grandmother. I've said it on the show. Like, anytime I'm feeling real anxious, she's there and knows what to say. So, and especially watching old Nick at Night, and you're doing your thing that you used to do with her around. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see that.
My grandmother told a story when she was alive of her sister who passed too young. She had a massive heart attack and died in her 50s. And she said she was sleeping in her bed and her foot was out of the covers and she felt somebody wiggling her toe, and she woke up and it was her sister at the foot of the bed wiggling her toe. And she said it freaked her out, but she realized it was her sister Joanne. So that's kind of cool, but at the same time, kind of freakish.
It gets creepy. My mom had, after my grandmother passed away, my dad was having some health problems, and my mom was real worried. And she said that she woke up one night and her mother was sitting on the side of her bed rubbing her shoulder. And I said, well, what was anything said? What'd you do? She said at first she was scared because you're waking up and someone's there.
Mm-hmm.
But then she said as soon as she felt her mother's hand, calmness all over her body, and she felt at peace.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said that's just her letting her know everything will be okay.
Yeah. Huh.
It hasn't happened to her since, hasn't.
Yeah.
She says every once in a while she'll hear her, but she said that's the time where she knew everything was going to be okay with my dad.
Wow.
And he turned around and came out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Third story says, I know it sounds like bullshit, but this rougarou, which is Australian for beer.
I love a rougarou. We're in Louisiana. It's a rougarou.
The rougarou. But this rougarou / dog man like thing used to sit in the clearing past our driveway. I often snuck out of the house to smoke at night and stay up late. Standard rebel emo teenager shit. There's a lot of swearing in this story, by the way. We lived in the middle of a highway. There were no towns for miles both ways. Our only light was a massive searchlight right past our garage. Being on a huge property meant just about anything from coyotes to panthers could roll out of the woods like it was nothing. But I was used to it. What I wasn't used to was the thing that would sit out in the clearing time to time, especially in the winter. It'd just sit under the searchlight the way one does when you sit on the ground with your legs straight out, holding its tail and picking at the ground. At first I thought we just had wolves or coyotes on roids, but eventually I made the stupid white man in a horror film decision and stepped out to whistle at it.
Oh, of course.
Oh, no. I learned my lesson when it scrambled to its bipedal feet and stared straight at me before hopping the chain link and running out onto the deserted highway. It came back every few weeks or so in the early morning or late night, usually sitting in that clearing digging at the crawfish holes or squatting at the end of the gravel driveway. I'd say F it and just go smoke in our laundry room those nights. I moved away years later, and I often wonder if it's still there. I still have dreams about the way it stared at me. Nobody I ever told believed me, but my dog and I know what we saw night after night.
The rougarou is one of my favorite cryptos because it's a combination of voodoo, werewolves, and just like Cajun folklore. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a way to keep the rougarou off your property, and it involves like putting mirrors and bells in your yard where you see the rougarou.
Really?
Because I might be wrong. I had to look it up, but I was on it for a kick for a while with the rougarou, just because we were going to Louisiana and stuff, and I me, and I was like, I want to really see this. And somebody says, yeah, I want to say it's bells and mirrors because it doesn't like seeing itself, and it'll ring and the bells scare it. Huh. And that's how you keep it off your land. Interesting. So whoever wrote that, I want to say, look up rougarou, keeping a rougarou away, and it'll tell you. But yeah, it's a fantastic crypto, and it goes way back. It's very Cajun. So you get the voodoo and all the Cajun stuff in there, out in the bayou. Huh. Weird. Yeah. Bet you didn't know I was a big rougarou fan, did you? I didn't know. Not until now. No. Yeah. They throw in werewolves and voodoo. It's just something about it, and everybody in the bayou believes in it. You go out into the depths of the bayou. Yep. And it's the rougarou is what they'll say. And they all have stories of the rougarou, just like this. Wow. They all have stories. Yep. Huh. Okay. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the rougarou. All right. Well, now we got a topic for another show. Yeah. The next story says, I was at Butterfly Beach in Montecito, California. It was late at night, and I was walking with my girlfriend at the time. We looked at the beach from an elevated walkway and noticed a small black humanoid creature about 4 feet tall, with a massive spherical head, maybe 2 or 3 feet in diameter. The moon caught it just right, and it reflected on its head. My girlfriend screamed, and the thing jumped into the ocean and swam away. Oh, it was just hanging out on the beach and watching the moonlight, I guess. Nothing I have Googled has explained this thing we saw. Way to ruin its romantic night, you guys. Yeah, really. I just wanted to see the moonlight.
Right? Let's see here. Let's look for some really creepy ones here. I don't know that we should read all 22. Oh, here we go. One night when I was a teenager, I was up late reading a library book before bed. It was something really boring that I had checked out for a history project. I was tired and couldn't keep my eyes open, so I fell asleep with it on my bed. Then this sleep paralysis-like thing happened, and I watched a shadowy figure of a man walk into my room, look around, pick up a few knickknacks, and then put them back down. It was so terrifying, my entire body was screaming to move, but I couldn't, not even my fingers. I finally got enough courage to look at the man, but he wouldn't come into focus for some reason. He was just a shadow, like he wasn't fully there. He came up to the side of my bed and stood over me, looking down at me for what felt like forever. I was so terrified, but I couldn't move a muscle. Then he reached down, grabbed my library book, and turned, walking out of my room. The next morning, I couldn't find my book. I never found it, ever, even after tearing apart my room and the house for it. My mom said it was a coping dream for losing the book, but I distinctly remember falling asleep reading it that night. I even sent a text to my boyfriend that night saying that I wished I had chosen a different book because this one was putting me to sleep.
That shadow man owes her a late book fee.
That's right. Can you imagine the late book fee on that deal?
How do you explain to the library that one? Well, this shadow dude showed up.
A shadow dude took my book. You can't charge me. A shadow dude took my book.
Why was your homework late? A shadow dude took my book. Ask the library.
I got another doppelganger story here.
Okay.
My childhood friend encountered a textbook doppelganger. He was about 15 and home alone over a long weekend. Oh, that's scary. Yeah. Right there. You're home alone over a long weekend. While his parents were traveling, but on Saturday night around 7 or 8 p.m., he was in his bedroom upstairs when he suddenly heard his mom call him to come get dinner. He popped his head out of his room, confused as you-know-what, but no one was there. So he called back down. Mom, are you home already? There was a long beat, but then after a few seconds, his mom walked slowly around the corner, coming from where the kitchen was, and looked straight up at him. She just smiled and then walked right back where she came from. My friend was frozen in place for a moment, but then again, he heard her call him to come get dinner. He said the only reason he didn't just walk down those stairs to see what was going on and why she was home so early was because he thought it was strange that she didn't talk or utter a single word when she appeared. Like, why did she just smile at him and then walk away? That just didn't sit right. The fact that he never saw her open her mouth. He could hear her and he could see her, but both plain as day, but never at the same time.
Whoa.
And that smallest of details is why he chose instead to slam his door shut and lock it and call his mom. She answered immediately and was still several states over, hundreds of miles away when she called him, or when he called her. They ended up calling the police for fear of an intruder or something, but they never found anyone in the house. It was all locked up with the security system on and everything. He did not sleep there alone anymore after that.
I wouldn't. That's creepy.
Yeah.
Oh, that would send me. He did the right thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we know things that can mimic things.
Yes. Yes, indeed. This story goes, my grandmother was a Cajun voodoo black witch. Physically, she was not a big woman. She was maybe 5 feet tall and 100 pounds. And at her funeral, they had 4 men carry her casket from the funeral home to the hearse. At the church, it took 6 to get her out. It took 8 to get her into the cemetery. As she got heavier and heavier, the closer they got to the cemetery. It took a total of 10 men to get her to the actual grave. Yeah.
She just didn't want to go.
No. When we returned to her house after, where the rest of the family was, me and my uncle went into the kitchen. It was hot, like opening an oven hot. But it was mid-February, and the house was in the country with no electricity. Inside the kitchen, we both saw my grandma, who we just buried, holding hands with 4 other women. I didn't know them, but my uncle recognized a couple. One was his grandma's sister. One was grandma's mom. both of whom were dead. I have not been back in that house since. That was 30 years ago.
Oh, another creepy story. I like how she didn't want to go, so she kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Just kicking and screaming the whole way.
Yeah, yep. This next story says, my first year of university, a girl I lived with had her friend over one night. He'd been shooting footage on the London Bridge at 3 a.m. to get some shots of it abandoned at night. He was really riled up about something and insisted we watch his footage and listen closely. Around the 1 minute mark, I heard a low, deeply menacing voice slowly whisper, as you walk the devil's path, death. There was something unintelligible in the middle, but it felt so final and evil. He turned to us and asked what we heard. When we answered, his face went white. He and everyone else he'd showed heard the same thing. He hadn't heard the voice when he was on the bridge, only when he was working on the audio.
Oh, that's another creepy one.
Mm-hmm. Next story. I've lived out in the middle of nowhere for about 10 years. I'm a night owl who likes to smoke outside, so I've seen some strange things. But the one thing I saw that gave me chills and thoroughly baffled me was a black oblong object, think cylinder or thermos, floating through the sky. It was darker than the night sky behind it and utterly silent, and maybe I'm misremembering, but I recall the night being completely silent too. No crickets, no cicadas, just silence. This was in the middle of summer, so that was strange. I told my family, and they just shrugged their shoulders.
That is creepy how stuff like that happens where there is no sound. Like you hear a lot of, especially when it comes to aliens, there's just no sound. It sounds like you're in a soundproof room, or, like the cicadas and all that, just they stop. Kind of like when a tornado comes, before a tornado hits, it just gets absolutely silent.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the creepiest, I think, of all of encounters, is it's the silence.
Yeah, most definitely. Hey, you want to hear a story about the South?
Yes, definitely. I love the story of the South.
All right. Several years ago, some friends and I were driving through one of the millions of small towns around the South Carolina border in the mountains. It was well after midnight. My friend looked behind us and saw a pair of headlights coming up on us fast, like easily 60 to 70 miles an hour when the limit was 25 or so. They showed no signs of stopping, so my friend pulled over to let the car pass. What passed us was two lights, just lights. Far too bright to be a firefly or any luminescent creature. As bright as headlights, if not brighter. Not attached to anything, no car, nothing. Just two lights booking it down the road.
Oh, I've driven some of those roads late at night, and it's scary.
I believe that's known as a will-o'-the-wisp.
Is it?
Yep.
So is that a fairy? Is that a...
Could be.
Yeah?
Yeah. That's what it's known as, I believe, in those parts.
Will-o'-the-wisp. I like that.
Will-o'-the-wisp. My cousin Mike and I live less than 2 miles apart. My dad passed away over 6 years ago, and I now live in his house. One day, about a year after Dad's passing, Mike started a fire in the wood furnace in the basement and went to bed. The what happened story I tell everyone is this. I was coming home from an equipment sale across the state, and I stopped to see a late movie, hit a bar for a few soft drinks, he says, then had a meal at a 24-hour diner. On the way home at about 3 a.m., I passed by Mike's place and saw fire coming out of the chimney and smoke coming out from the basement door. I called 911 and ran into the house, yelling for them to get up. Mike and I went downstairs and found the area at the base of the chimney burning. We put it out, and the fire department put out the chimney fire. There was no real smoke damage upstairs, and the house needed minimal repairs. A few more minutes, though, and the fire would have burned up into the kitchen. The truth of what happened was this. I got home at about 10:30 and I went to bed. Some of this I'm not clear on. I'm not sure if I dreamt it or if it was some sort of apparition. Close to 3 a.m., Dad opened up the door to my room, turned on the light and said, "Get up. You have to go help at Gary's." I remember saying, "In the morning." He said in his most authoritative voice, "No, right now." I sat bolt upright in my bed. My room door was open and the hallway light was on. I tried to dismiss it as imagination, but I knew I had to turn off that light and shut my door. I realized with the adrenaline rush and my lingering doubts, I would not get back to sleep. So for peace of mind, I decided to get dressed and drive over to check on Mike's place. That's when I spotted the chimney fire.
Wow. Dad came to the rescue from the other side.
I guess so, huh? Interesting.
That's another interesting story.
Yeah.
I don't get why he doesn't tell everybody that. Like he made up the whole bar and all that, like I get why, but it's 2022. Like people are more open to that stuff.
That's right. Next story is an officer on a reservation. We kept getting reports of a tall man at different places in town. One night we caught him on our thermal camera. There were about 10 officers there. It was tall, about 8 to 9 feet.
Ooh, that's a very tall man.
Yeah, it is, with long dark hair and a human-looking face. It stood on a hill overlooking the town below, but moved really quickly. That's the story.
There's nothing else?
No.
They didn't chase it or find out what it was?
If it were 8 to 9 feet, would you go after it?
Well, if I'm a police officer, it's kind of my job.
I ain't going after it.
That could have been a Wendigo.
It could have been. But I ain't going after
it. I'm doing something. Like, I'm a public servant. Like, I'm a cop. I have to do something.
Go get donuts?
Just ignore the 9-foot tall man on the hill and just go get donuts.
Is he committing a crime?
Obviously, he's suspicious and people are calling me.
I'll go get donuts.
I would use my car bullhorn. Hey, what's going on up there? See if he turns and talks to me. If he started approaching me, then that's a different story. Then I'm gone.
Yeah. Next story. When my youngest son was about 3 years old, we were eating out in town and he got a bit restless. I decided to take him for a walk. And as I held the door open, he got away from me and made a break for it. He bolted into an adjacent site, which had a ruined chapel, almshouses with info boards for tourists. I found him staring up at the chapel ruins. "What are you doing, mate?" I asked. He replied, "A long time ago, I got married here." Then a switch flicked and he was off running again, and it shook me to my core.
Past life.
Yep, past life.
Definitely a past life.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard the wives' tale that a birthmark is where you were mortally wounded in your past life, and that's why you have a birthmark there?
I have heard that, yeah. Yep. Next story, it was about 10 p.m. and my wife had just gotten home. I was taking the trash to the dumpster in the alley behind our complex. It was a very short distance from my door to the dumpster, and there was nothing to obstruct the view. So it was easy to see my wife open the gate and head up the walkway toward our apartment. I waved at her and had no idea how she didn't see me. As I walked up, I saw the door to our apartment open. Of course, I just assumed she opened it, but it was dark, so I didn't actually see her do it. Then I saw her kind of lean in and I heard her call my name, but she would not physically walk into the apartment. Confused, I came up behind her and I said, "Hi." She became frantic, asking me, "How the fuck did you do that? How did you get back inside?" I told her I'd been here the whole time, but she interrupted me and said, "No, you opened the door for me." She said she saw me walk upstairs and called after me, but I silently turned to look at her and continued walking. I searched the apartment for another person, but found nothing. We moved about 6 months later to the house we live in now. One day shortly after we moved, my wife thought she saw me walk past the windows that looked into the backyard from the kitchen, but it wasn't me. She said it looked just like me and that it walked all the way around the house. It disappeared, and then she realized I was in the bedroom the entire time.
Ooh, another doppelganger or multiple universe. Multiple universe. Like, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there is lots of interesting stuff. Next story. Maybe 3 years ago, I was working on a commercial fishing vessel in Casco Bay, Maine. It was dark out, maybe 10 at night. We had a small fleet going, just a few boats chasing fish around all day, but no luck. We decided to head home and try again tomorrow, but about 20 minutes after we parted ways from the other boat, we got a call telling us that there was a UFO about 15 feet above their boat. They asked if we still had a visual on this vessel, but we did not. Before we got any more information, the radio suddenly cut out. There was only static, and then he tried to talk. We just brushed it off, thinking he was just playing some weird prank. A minute later, I lit a cigarette and walked out to the deck. That's when it happened. About 10 to 15 feet above my head was a friggin' UFO about the size of a car. There were 3 very bright lights in triangle form on the bottom of the craft, but the light did not appear on the water or deck. I was in shock and disbelief. I called my captain and we watched in horror as we realized the ship was mimicking the motion of our boat, bobbing up and down as our boat did on the waves. Suddenly the boat stopped moving. We fell to the deck, and when we looked back up, the craft was nowhere to be seen. We assumed we hit an underwater ledge or rocks or something. There was no way that our boat could have stopped that quickly. According to our sonar, though, the area was about 60 feet deep. There was no way we hit anything. To this day, I have no clue what we saw that night.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
I believe, again, like I said before, aliens are attracted to water in some sort of way.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
You know, and it's amazing how it traveled from one ship to another, one boat to another boat.
Yeah, just checking out what was there.
Yeah, just seeing what's going on.
Yep. Next story, I was working really late when I decided to take a break and let my dog out. I let him off the leash and popped a squat on the stairs. I mean, not literally popped a squat, but, you know, as she does with her weird little poop ritual, she stopped dead in her tracks about 20 feet in front of a tree. I was about another 30 or so feet behind her, but I could see that her hackles had come up and her body was completely rigid. I softly called her name, but it didn't break her trance. As I started getting closer to her, I noticed a change in the ever-present ringing in my ears. It's important to know I suffer from Meniere's disease, so I have constant tinnitus, ear fullness, hearing loss, and debilitating vertigo attacks. Well, I used to have vertigo. I haven't had an attack in over a decade. Remember this. Anyway, the ringing in my ear changed in pitch and became a lot louder. Another few steps and I started to feel a weird sensation behind my left eyeball. I took another few steps and a piercing pain shot through the left side of my head. This was a telltale sign that within the next 90 seconds, I was going to start my first vertigo attack in nearly 11 years. I used a more stern tone, but my dog would not break her focus. She let out a deep guttural growl I'd never heard her make before. Like clockwork, the pain behind my left eye and the left side of my head abruptly ended, and I was hit with a wave of heavy vertigo. I looked on my dog's leash and stood up. When I did, the vertigo gave off the sensation that my brain had detached from the base of my spine and was doing freeform backflips in my skull.
Oh.
Yeah. I had to fight to stay upright and keep my eyes from rolling back so I had enough perceived balance to make it back upstairs. To do this, I focused on the tree that my dog had been so upset about, and that's when the thing decided to step out from behind it and into our view. It was tall, taller than me, and I'm at 6'7". It was unimaginably skinny, so much so that I couldn't believe organs could fit inside its torso.
Oh.
Along with its odd stature, the thing's skin, and this is in quotes, was this deep pitch black. Due to the color and the weird way it played with the poor lighting, it was impossible to make out any discernible facial or body features. From that impression alone, the only description I can muster up is that it looked like a poorly drawn 2D stick man that had busted off the page. My dog and I stared at this thing as it looked back at us from maybe 6 feet away. Then the thing turned around and took off down the street, running at an astounding speed. It moved oddly, though, like it was gliding, almost what a cross-country skier might look like, but even smoother and more completely silent. It covered half a block in a matter of seconds before jumping over a 6-foot fence in a single leap and vanishing into the night. A second after it vanished, my vertigo stopped. The tinnitus went down, and I was mostly fine again. I don't know if my sudden vertigo attack was related to what I saw that night, but it certainly feels that way. Vertigo attacks that are associated with, I believe it's Meniere's, tends to last an hour at their shortest and 24 hours at their longest. My attacks always averaged in the 12 to 6 hour or 16 hour range. This attack lasted less than 2 minutes.
I bet it was a defense for whatever it was. Whatever that creature was, their defense was to project something to cause that.
Either that or it was like a spidey sense.
Yeah, that could be too.
Yeah. The next story, my dad owned rental houses. Back in the 90s, my girlfriend and I would go after a renter left and rehab them. The house, that is, not the renter. There was one particular house that he'd purchased years ago with the renter already in it. When they passed away, we went in and started in the bedrooms, first painting, then cutting out the carpets. We noticed we kept losing our carpet cutters, but assumed we'd accidentally rolled them up in the carpets. We got fluorescent orange cutters we couldn't miss. Nope, still went missing. Whatever, we kept going. We pulled the living room carpet up, and there were several large stains that looked exactly like dried blood.
Ooh.
Yeah, soaked into the cork underfloor. Okay, it could have been anything. Maybe someone butchered a chicken in the living room. Who knows?
Maybe.
Maybe.
They have to tell you if there was a murder at the house, don't they?
In some states, yes, but most states, no.
I thought it was a common thing.
Nope. But then as I was painting the living room wall, I saw a human-shaped shadow cross it.
Oh.
Yeah.
You now have a haunted house.
Yeah. I figured someone was walking across the house or around the house. Maybe a meter reader. That's a good guess. I ran outside looking up and down the street, but no one was there. No one. We finished in a big hurry and got paid. My dad called later and asked what we used to clean it because the house was full of flies.
Oh.
I went back and washed every flat surface with bleach and water. The next day it was full of flies again.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a malicious entity of some sort.
Yeah. It was a house built on a concrete slab, so there was no crawl space. He decided they must be getting in through a crack in the slab, so he filled all the cracks with silica. Nope, still flies.
Wow.
Yep, I vacuumed up hundreds of dead flies by the end of this. My father is a strong man, but he's no fool. He doesn't believe in the supernatural, but he sold that cursed house immediately. Yeah, there's not a haunted house rule in all states. It's mainly in the eastern states.
I knew that, but I thought if there was a murder in there or it was a former crime scene, they have to disclose that.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
I know in Minnesota you don't.
That's so creepy.
Yeah.
Because and I get why they have to disclose it in some states, because look what happened to them as they're cutting up. Because once blood gets into the wood, it's next to impossible to get out.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
My daughter's boyfriend, soon to be fiance, husband, whatever, he's a crime scene cleaner. So he's the guys that you pay to come in to clean after a crime happened.
Really?
Yeah, he's got some fascinating tales. He makes quite the penny doing it. And I asked him, so what's the worst you ever had to deal with? He says, if a decomposing body is in a house, even when they remove the body, there's still
the stench,
juices, and stench. So they have the whole tie back, gear and the mask and all that. He says that's the worst. Oh, because no matter that stuff sticks to you, like that smell. Oh, and he said like it's gross because you're scooping up essentially what was part of a human. Whatever we die, the stuff that comes out. I said, so then it's not the blood and stuff? He goes, no. He goes, you get used to the blood because it's usually just stains by the time they get there. Yeah. He says it's all the fecal matter and he just called it juice. They call it dead juice. Dead juice. Yeah.
Get it soon at a store near you. Dead juice.
I should pitch that to him. Hey, you could probably make quite a penny at Halloween.
a new energy drink. Dead juice. Next story.
He has some great stories about the houses and the parks and just the different stuff. He lives in Illinois too, so he's quite busy.
Oh, I suppose, yeah. There's never a want for work, I suppose.
No, he's quite busy. And they clean up everything, like even after like a bar fight or something, they can get paid to come in. It's
Really?
their crime scene cleanup, to get your house back to where it is. And he's the one that told me about blood. Like, the blood stains, they will stay. They do all the best they can to get it out. But if it's on wood, it gets in the wood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we were talking about how, you can go into some haunted houses or some houses that claim to be haunted. You can smell the cigar smoke in the wood or the perfume. Yep. He says, oh, yeah. He goes, that's classic. He says, if you smell iron, that's usually blood because blood's so thick in iron. He says, if you go and you smell iron, look around and you'll probably see a faint stain. Even if they try to stain over it, it's still there. He says that's probably where your smell.
Yeah, wood is so porous that it absorbs everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's hard to get that stuff out. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Our next story says, my family has seen UFOs at our old family fishing spot for nearly 100 years now. Along the southwest coast of Western Australia, they'd see weird balls of purple and green light that sped around at night, hovering and descending into the ocean. Apparently, my great-great-grandfather used to talk about how people were driving them around the sky back in 1920s. I think it might have been a phenomenon similar to the plasma balls that have been observed elsewhere in the world. Still neat. Who knows? That's a short one.
I like how they ended it. Still neat.
Still neat. Who knows? Next one, in the 80s, a teenage girl I ran away as a teenage girl. What? In the 80s, a teenage girl ran away from home, and was killed in a freak accident in my hometown. We heard stories.
You weren't the teenage girl that ran away.
No.
Okay. The way you started that sounded like you were the teenage girl running away.
The sentence didn't make much sense until I just kind of sorted it out. In the 80s, a teenage girl ran away from home and was killed in a freak accident in my hometown. We heard stories for years about people seeing her. She died riding her bike and wearing a baseball cap. One night, I was coming home really late and was stopped at a red light all by myself. Out of the corner of my eye, so I turned to look. There she was on her bike, baseball cap and all, staring at me. I looked forward for a millisecond, and by the time I looked over again, she was gone.
I love small town folklore. So great.
Second to the last story here. When I was 11 years old, I saw a UFO. I will swear on this until the day I die. It was around 9 to 9:30 at night, and it was the springtime. I was wide awake, completely sober, not on any meds. I looked out the window, and in between my house and my neighbor's house were a bunch of trees. Well, on the ground in this wooded area was a UFO, except the physical surroundings of it were unaffected. Not a single tree was crushed. This UFO sat there for about 10 minutes, then slowly took off into the air. It just went around in circles as it got higher. And as it got higher, the circles got wider. This lasted another 5 minutes or so until it vanished.
I'm curious why no trees were affected. Normally you see burn patterns or something.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And the last story. My friend G and I, that's the letter G, and I were traveling back from Winnipeg to the Pas, Manitoba, Canada. It's the Pas. The Pas, Manitoba, Canada. The trip there took about 6 hours as usual. I've done this trip numerous times as the Pas is my hometown. On the way back, the first 3.5 hours went by normally. I was driving the speed limit most of the time as it was icy and snowing, so we came up to the turnoff where Highway 6 turns off onto the 60. At about 4 p.m. At this point, the conditions were ideal. The sun was at about just at the horizon, and the sky was beautiful. This is where things got really effing strange. After 20 minutes on the highway, a red van overtook us right before a sharp bend. When we came around the bend, the van had vanished. Despite it being a long, straight highway here, I thought it was weird, but I didn't pay any mind. The drive on this particular highway was supposed to be an hour long. After another 45 minutes of driving, my friend G said, "Have you noticed that there hasn't been any road signage?" I hadn't, but there was none at all. No signs indicating when a turn was coming up or how far we were from nearby towns. At this point, I noticed the sun hadn't moved an inch in the sky, and we hadn't seen another vehicle in a while. Unnerved, I sped up. I started having this overwhelming feeling that something was wrong. Then I noticed the scenery. It was all wrong. The trees were the same height and densely packed together. The highway normally had a sparse tree line with small ponds and marshland all along it. We'd been on this highway for about 2 hours now, and the sun still hadn't moved. There was no road signs. There was no traffic, and we were not where we should have been. Out of nowhere, the sun set unnaturally fast in about 2 minutes. We were enveloped in the darkness of a starless night without a moon. Just when this ominous, oppressive feeling started feeling unbearable, we came to the turnoff out of nowhere. 3 hours we were stuck on that effing highway that it takes barely over an hour to travel, but it didn't end there. Just when I thought we were returning to normal, I glanced in the rearview mirror thinking that for the first time in 3 hours I'd seen headlights. I was wrong. In the back seat sitting directly behind me was a black human silhouette with glowing yellow eyes. G and I both saw it. I couldn't believe what we were experiencing. The next hour and a half were terrifying and mostly set in silence. We finally
they didn't pull over and get out?
No. We finally pulled into the pass shortly before midnight, and I noticed our gas meter barely moved. We are totally lost on the explanation of what exactly happened.
I would have pulled it as soon as that thing appears in my back seat. I'm pulling over, getting out of the car, and going, "Okay, what is going on?" Creepy.
I don't know. They just were
time travel, mystical spirit. That's a creepy story.
They were just along for the ride, I guess.
Creepy.
No idea, Bruiser. We move on. Evidently, exorcism is just something we can't quite quit. We can't quit you, exorcism. This coming from the Los Angeles Times. I'll just kind of breeze over the article because it gets into the writer's perspective. Evidently, possession is now recognized by the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
It is. It finally made it in there, huh?
Yeah.
Because I know the first step normally when someone feels something's going on is they take them to a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
Yeah, and that is, you're right. But now
that's always the first step, and then the next step is a priest. Or it might be priest, but the priest says, hey, go to a psychologist, psychiatrist.
Right. The article writer, the writer of the article, there we go. I'd say things backwards like Jar Jar Binks. Says he had a letter on his desk from an exorcism team at a Southern California Catholic church telling the writer that more people of goodwill have been experiencing various forms of spiritual attacks since the onset of the pandemic, and that the team is overwhelmed with its current workload.
I believe that.
M. Scott Peck, the well-known psychiatrist who wrote about spiritual development in The Road Less Traveled, treated 2 patients he diagnosed as possessed and helped do exorcisms on both of them. He admitted he went from being a complete non-believer to a complete believer in the demonic ability to possess. A recent Vatican-sponsored exorcism conference in Rome was attended by 250 priests from 51 countries. The tools of the trade in Catholicism are simple: a purple stole, a crucifix, holy water, a copy of exorcism, and related supplications. Most Catholic exorcisms take days to place, or most Catholic exorcisms these days take place in a church office with the possessed sitting in a chair. Modern medical practice agrees that physical well-being and mental well-being are intertwined with spirituality. There are countless examples of this. Somatization disorder is defined as a recurrent and multiple medical symptom, generally with no discernible organic cause. The symptoms were physical, mental, and spiritual, a fear survival response to emotion and physiology. Integrative medicine is the combination of treating mind, body, and spirit. An alternative to traditional psychiatry, psychoneurology bridges ancient wisdom with leading-edge technology to pioneer an entirely new paradigm in healing and wellness, according to its accreditation board. So basically, they're saying in the article that they've now taken a more relaxed stance on exorcism, and they're looking at it as more of a means of treatment when they can't explain chemical reasons for mental illness.
Yeah, I know for years that was the thing, was schizophrenia used to come up a lot, and just other mental disorders. And that's why it took so long to get approval from the church to get approved, because you have to be approved for an exorcism. You can't, it's not like you just walk into your local church. It's not like you can go down to St. Mary's here and open up the door and go, hey, can you give me an exorcism?
Right.
They do a whole procedure on it.
Well, and
an investigation.
What's interesting, and we may have him on here in the future, is Adam Bly, who works more in deliverances than exorcisms, because he's not, I don't want to use the word qualified by the Catholic Church, but he's a layman. He's not
certified.
Yeah, he's not certified to do exorcisms by the Catholic Church, but he can do deliverances. Is a psychologist, but he's certified by the Vatican to go out and do deliverances. So he's kind of the first line of defense. So he'll go out and he'll run somebody through psychiatric screenings first, to determine whether it is someone who needs psychiatric help or actually needs an exorcism.
There's a local psychiatrist here that I befriended. That's her job. She's certified by the church to go in. She can't, just like this guy, can't perform the exorcism, but she goes in and she says, yeah, there's a whole list of stuff I run through, and it's got to be approved. A priest works with her hand in hand while she's doing that and all that. And it's just amazing how far we've come in exorcism in the last 100 years. Because remember, it used to be taboo to talk about, and the church never said it was true and all that. And now look at where we're at, where they're admitting it. They're saying there's a book for it. There's a process now, and
and they're working hand in hand, which is important.
Yeah, which is good for a couple of reasons. Because one, if it isn't a possession, it just happens to be a mental illness, that person's still going to get help.
Yes,
whether it's a mental illness or a possession, they're good. They're in the right spot now to get help either way, which is awesome. Because it used to be, nope, you have a mental illness, go away. Even though it could be a possession, or it was, this person's possessed. This is what we have. You know what I mean? Like, you're helping the person now, which is by the whole purpose of it.
Yep, absolutely. There's an interesting article that's out on Dread Central having to do with Steve Gonzalez of Ghost Hunters. He's got his own project out there, and you might have seen The House in Between, which came out a little while ago. The House in Between Part 2 is being released. He did an interview along with his partner on that deal. The House in Between Part 2, and I'm going to paraphrase on this article as well. He's asked by the interviewer, I'll just give you a little taste here. Steve Gonzalez is no stranger to the world of the paranormal. Gonzalez has been a staple to the crew of the hit show Ghost Hunters since it started in the early 2000s. He's done hundreds of investigations and encountered all matters of paranormal phenomena. Then in 2019, he worked with friend and director of photography Kendall Welpton to take it to the next level. They made a documentary, The House in Between, about one of the most haunted houses in America. Now Gonzalez and Welpton are back with The House in Between Part 2, delving deeper into the mysteries of this house to try and find an explanation for all of its phenomena. Getting the full details about the documentary and its exclusive trailer. This Dread Central article sat down with the team to chat about the upcoming follow-up, and it's how scientists can better work with paranormal researchers in both of their most terrifying, unexplained experiences, which we'll get to that here in a second. They ask them, of course, how they met and about their work on the project, The House in Between Part 1 and Part 2. Kendall, of course, got his first his teeth cut by Ghost Hunters. They asked Kendall about how he got into it. He said Ghost Hunters was his first real kind of dip into investigating in the paranormal world. But he says for him, I'll always be interested in the paranormal. That's why I answered the Craigslist ad that said crew gearing up quick for a ghost hunting show. I actually lived in a haunted house, an old hospital, when I was 18 out in Colorado for way up in the mountains. He said I had a few experiences there. Once I hit that first investigation, the second investigation, I realized quickly that was something that I was very interested in. and very lucky to be following these guys. They were at the forefront and still are at the forefront of paranormal research. It's been quite the trip with every one of these shoots and every one of these investigations. You keep learning, so it's always fun and interesting. So they ask about scariest experiences. So we get to...
They asked both of them, Steve and
both Steve and Kendall. They do.
The House in Between, by the way, is free on Roku and Tubi and I think Pluto.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I watched it.
What'd you think of it, by the way?
I love it. I'm a big fan of Steve. He's the reason when I first started watching Ghost Hunters, he was the reason I continued to watch, just because he's so laid back, but he's still, I don't know, he's a very good investigator. He's very good at his job. He's very good at what he does. So I enjoyed it because it was 100% Steve you could see coming through. I know the Kendall helped, but like I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. So I'm glad there's a sequel coming along.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad he got his own format and his own place to shine.
He did for a while. Remember, he had the Ghost Hunter School.
Yeah.
That's where Adam came from. And that was him and Tango running it.
Yeah.
You know, which was fun.
Reason I say his own format, and follow me if you will, because Steve and Tango tend to get grouped in the same group.
Yes.
Almost like Batman and Robin, you know?
Yes, 100%. Because they're the two that investigate all the time. It's either Jason and Steve or Steve and Tango.
Mm-hmm. And you tend not to see one without the other. And the reason I say on his own, and even though Kendall is in this, I think you truly see Steve on his own. Yeah. You know, and you get to see more of him and more of his personality.
You get to see more of his investigation style in this documentary. Mm-hmm. Where in Ghost Hunters, you see his style. Like, don't get me wrong. He has his own way of doing it, like we all do. Mm-hmm. But he also has the way of, okay, this is how the TV show wants it. This is how Taps runs investigation. Yeah. Where this, he's bringing in some new stuff you haven't seen him use.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't want to say his personality doesn't come out on the Ghost Hunter show, because it does. But this, you get more him. And like I said, I'm a big fan of Steve. I think he's an amazing investigator. Mm-hmm. I find it funny he doesn't fly, which blows my mind.
He doesn't. Yeah.
No, he drives everywhere.
Well, neither does Zach Bagans now. So
really, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. He well, and it had with Zach, it had to do with a lightning strike on a tarmac.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he doesn't fly.
Yeah, it just blows my mind. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed The House in Between and very excited for a sequel. And anytime Steve can do something on his own, he's definitely got at least one viewer in me.
Yeah. So they asked Kendall first, what kind of since you came into the world of the paranormal with Ghost Hunters, what has been your scariest experience so far working in the world of the paranormal? Kendall says, "Oh wow, oh boy, I'm always scared of people, buildings, or locations. They're really scary to me. You know, actual people sneaking in on, or people squatting. That's always like a very big concern. But actual paranormal, with Stephen and Jay in Philadelphia at Dr. Is it Psychic's house in season 11? We had a cart move on us. It picked up speed and ramped up towards us. It startled me so bad I ended up yelping like a little girl." I think that's one of the top ones, but there have been so many experiences, especially with following Steve, Tango, and Jay for so long. There's always something happening. Then they asked Steve, you've gone on so many investigations. What is one of the top ones that stick out of your head? Scary, freaky, weird, unexplainable moments that you've had in your career. Steve says, there's quite a few. I'm very fortunate that the paranormal doesn't scare me, so I don't necessarily get scared, but I do get quite startled. That quickly translates usually into fun or excitement. I will say just recently we were investigating and using a LiDAR system, which is just a laser and sonar hybrid. I was actually investigating with my buddy Tango, and we were picking up something on this LiDAR with us in the room there. This senses anything with mass. It'll map it all out and show it in a visual form. It's quite fascinating how it works. We were picking up something else in the room with us, and it was reacting to us. and reacting on command, which is quite interesting. But then when we asked it to come toward us, we actually picked it up on the LiDAR system moving toward us. And it showed it rushing at us very quickly. What was interesting was that we could feel the concussive force of its presence pushing toward us. We actually got bounced back a few feet, and that was quite scary. We both sort of pulled ourselves together and looked at each other and said, what the heck was that? Our bodies didn't know what to do. All we could do is laugh, because our body didn't know how to process that. Like, what's happening? What is this? Are you kidding me? So we just ended up laughing and giggling about it. And then it was after the fact realizing like, oh man, that was something else. That was quite startling. It definitely was a scary experience. It really was. And if I wasn't an investigator who, was there to experience that, I would be quite terrified.
Yeah.
Which he brings up a good point. You can't go to Disneyland and see Mickey Mouse, and when you see Mickey, run away in terror.
That's true.
And for somebody who's been in it as long as he has, I think that's kind of a weird question to ask. What's the scariest thing you've ever seen? Well, in the first couple of years you've done this, you might have seen something that's a little scary, but for a guy who's as experienced as he is, I don't think you're going to see anything that's scary. I think you're going to expect the expected, and you might have something that's different. But
a better question is, what's something that shocked you or surprised you?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's a better question, like you said. I don't think anything scares Steve at this point. I think it's startled.
No, and you can tell when you watch him investigate.
Yeah.
Like, and like he said, it's startlement and excitement. And you can see that, especially in the house in between. He has a couple startling moments where he, his body reacts, because your body is going to react no matter how you feel.
Yep.
And then he has that giggle and that smile that he has, where that's the excitement, because he caught something.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
I always, whenever I try to explain to people when they watch Ghost Hunters, how come these guys aren't scared? I said, it's kind of like they use the name hunters in there. And it's kind of like when a hunter goes hunting for a deer, he's doing what he can, and then he might get startled because he hears a noise, but then he focuses, and then he shoots the deer in the excitement because he got the deer and he caught it and he got it and he pulled it back. That's how these guys are reacting. That's how most investigators react, because you're looking for something and then you find it and it's exciting and it's, here we go.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Next story. The yellow brick road has been found, Bruiser, and we just need to follow it now.
It's not in Kansas?
No.
It better lead to Kansas.
If we follow it, though, we're going to drown.
Well, then that's not good, because we're taught by Dorothy, by the wizard, to follow the yellow brick road.
Yeah, well, if we follow it, we're going to go 3 kilometers beneath the sea.
Oh, no.
We're not coming back. Researchers aboard the research vessel Nautilus have discovered something unusual at the bottom of the ocean, nestled deep beneath the waves of the... Wow, I'm not good at Hawaiian pronunciations. Is it the Liliuokalani Ridge to the north of Hawaii? This intriguing geological feature was spotted during an exploration of the... Oh, my God, I cannot pronounce this. The Papahana Moakuakea Marine National Monument, or the PMNM, which is one of the largest marine conservation areas on the planet. I hopefully don't have to say that twice. The team behind the discovery certainly isn't hiding anything. The Ocean Exploration Trust actually streams its footage online, and anyone can tune in to watch what they're up to in real time. They also post highlight videos of particularly interesting finds, such as this one on YouTube. Well, that's good. The Yellow Brick Road, as it's been referred to, is actually the result of ancient volcanic activity at the summit of, how is this pronounced? Nootka Seamount, Nootka Seamount. The team spotted a dried lakebed formation. Now, IDED is a fractured flow of, gosh, they have so many names, of hyaloclastite. hyaloclastite rock. It's a volcanic rock formed in high-energy eruptions where many rock fragments settle to the seabed. That's what the team wrote. The unique 90-degree fractures are likely related to heating and cooling stress from multiple eruptions at this baked margin. You can actually follow the Yellow Brick Road on YouTube. Just look up Yellow Brick Road.
So the Yellow Brick Road leads to Hawaii. I'm in.
Yeah, you're in. See? There you go.
If you ever want a kick, because you were talking about the names, I'm going to bring up some underwater needlepoint, so I'm sorry to the fans right off the bat. But if you ever want a kick, look up the Samoan dynasty's lineage. So it starts with High Chief Peter Maivia, and then everybody knows The Rock and Roman Reigns and all that. But if you look up their actual family tree, it's so big, you have to scroll on your laptop to cover the whole family tree. And it's not because there's so many people. It's because the names are so long because there's all the names, because it's all the old Samoan names. Yeah. And it's my wife didn't believe me one time, and she looked it up on her phone, and she's like, oh my God, what the? I'm like, yeah, you're not even halfway through the family tree.
They're huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I'm assuming any Hawaiian family or Samoan family you look up, that's just the way it is because their names are so big.
Well, you got to differentiate yourself from your relatives. You can't just.
I guess so.
You can't be John Smith and John Smith Jr.
No, you have to be Koa Smith.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta have some flair in there. That's the beautiful thing about Polynesians and Samoans. They've got wonderful names and beautiful names, but man, they got some syllables.
Yeah. But their heritage is beautiful. Anybody that wants to look at some beautiful tribal stuff, the Polynesian culture is just. And I've never been to Hawaii, but I want to. It's on my bucket list.
Mine too.
It looks so beautiful, and then the heritage that they have with the tribes and the fire dancing, and now the Yellow Brick Road's there. It's true paradise.
True, very true. Well, Bruiser. People in the audience here at Darkness Radio seem to think I hate cats.
Oh, yeah, I remember talking off air about this.
Yep. And it turns out that psychologists now hate cats.
Well, I do want to go on record. I own cats, but I'm going to say this right off the bat. Cats are assholes.
Turns out now they're crazy.
100% believe it.
This is according to Psychology Today. It's not me, folks. It's not me saying this. It's the well-known, renowned magazine, Psychology Today.
Which you get every day, 5 a.m.
5 a.m. on my doorstep. Cats see things that are not there, folks. That's according to it. They're not looking at grandma. Maybe they're looking at you for a meal when you die. But it says research shows that they like to sit in illusory boxes.
My cat loves box. My little Bruiser, he loves. Anytime he loves when Amazon comes because he knows he's getting a special box.
And we were talking about this before the show.
Yeah. He hates that we're moving right now because he's in heaven. There's boxes everywhere, and then we fill them up and move them. And he's like, wait, what?
You're taking my toy. It says here in the article, you don't need to be a cat owner to know that cats like to sit in boxes, especially cardboard boxes, but they also like to sit in any kind of enclosed areas. If there's a circle painted on the floor, the cat is likely to sit right in the middle. This is an experiment you need to try at home.
I've done this experiment. So this experiment's true. We took tape and taped in a carpet a square. Mm-hmm. So you take tape and you it's got to be a fairly large square.
Okay.
Like a small box. And you put the tape there, and your cat will come and sit there and just stare. You can do it anywhere in the house. And then if you put a cucumber down, they will run away. They will be terrified and run away. They're terrified of cucumbers.
So the Undertaker is a cat.
Yes, he is. I didn't put two and two together, but you're right. He likes to be in caskets. He's terrified of cucumbers.
Yep. A recent study uses this cat habit to find out how cats perceive the world. Perception is weird. When we see a cat behind a picket fence, our perceptual systems complete those parts of the cat that are not visible. No light from those parts hit our retina, but they are nonetheless represented even in the earliest stages of our perceptual processing. They have a diagram. Think of 4 black circles, and a white square connecting them.
Okay.
Okay, so 4 circles at the corners of that white square.
Right.
Okay. A well-studied example of this is such completion is the Kaniza square. There, it's spelled Kanizsa square. There are only 4 Pac-Man-like black shapes on the screen, but you see a white square because your visual system completes the missing illusory contours. This completion happens as early as the primary visual cortex.
So in your brain, you connect the square.
Right, you connect the square. Right.
Yep.
These are examples from vision, but such completion happens in all sense modalities. Take hearing, for example. When we hear a loud bang when listening to a tune, the auditory system continues to represent the tune even in that brief moment when the bang is the only thing we hear. A popular demonstration of such auditory completion is the American late-night show host Jimmy Kimmel's segment, A Week in Unnecessary Censorship, which I love, by the way, when he bleeps out completely harmless words from famous politicians, making them seem like expletives. This phenomenon is called amodal completion. Set aside issues about the differences between modal and amodal completion. Amodal completion is not a perceptual curiosity, is part of our ordinary perception. It happens very rarely in real-life situations that we can perceive an object without exercising amodal completion. In natural scenes, we always get occlusion because objects tend not to be fully transparent. Every time we see an object occluded by another object, which means every time we see anything in real life, barring odd cases of fully translucent visual scenes or very simple visual displays, we use amodal completion of the occluded parts of perceived objects. We can't understand perception without understanding amodal completion. Are you confused yet?
I'm very confused. I get the gist of it.
Okay.
But
so
you used a lot of technical terms of.
So in other words, if I cover something up, like say Jimmy Kimmel's Jimmy Kimmel's bit, okay. So if I bleep out the word can, you think I'm swearing.
Right.
So
we fill in the blanks.
Right. We fill in our own blanks. That's exactly right. So we talk about cats again. So here the notorious cat habit of sitting inside boxes came in handy. Cats like to sit in enclosed spaces, even if they are just marked on the floor in the form of a painted circle or square. The question is, do they also like to sit in illusory enclosed spaces? If there are painted squares on the floor, cats sit inside them. But what if there are painted shapes, like in the Kaniza square above? What do? Do they amodally complete the figure? It seems that the answer is yes. Cats are just as likely to sit in the middle of an amodally completed square of the Kaniza illusion as they are to sit in the middle of a plain square. It's an elegant way of finding out how amodal completion works in cats, and by extension, how they perceive the world. In some very real sense, cats do see things that are not there. This is yet another way in which they are much like humans.
Well, I got a special project to do tonight.
There you go.
Cut some Pac-Mans and put them on the floor.
Cut some Pac-Mans, put them on the floor, and see if
what my
they
cat does.
Sit inside them. Now, to prove the opposite points, that scientists are crazy. And this is where you, as a paranormal believer, can say scientists are full of shit. And I'm about to give you real life evidence of this.
Real facts of why they're full of shit.
Real facts of why they're full of shit. This from ScienceDaily.com. You can look up the article. They say that links between paranormal beliefs and cognitive functions described by 40 years of research prove you're full of shit. Here's what they say in their new study. A summary of the study says, in a review of 71 studies that explored links between belief in paranormal phenomena and cognitive function, most of the findings align with the hypothesis that such beliefs are associated with cognitive differences or deficits. In other words, you got something wrong with your brain.
And that's why there's paranormal.
And that's why there's paranormal beliefs.
They're full of shit.
They're full of shit. In a review of 71 studies that explored links between belief in paranormal phenomena and cognitive function, most of the findings align with the hypothesis that such beliefs are associated with cognitive differences or deficits. Charlotte E. Dean and colleagues at the University of Hertfordshire, UK, present this evaluation in the open access journal PLOS 1 on May 4th. For several decades, I could go on and on and on about the study, but I'll give you the highlights here. Thank you, Bruiser. They say that they examine potential links between cognitive functioning and belief in paranormal phenomena such as psychokinesis, hauntings, and clairvoyance. However, about 30 years have passed since a non-systematic review of this literature was last conducted. To provide updated insights into the findings and quality of studies on this topic, Dean and colleagues systematically identified and evaluated 70 published studies and one unpublished doctoral thesis produced between 1980 and 2020. The 71 studies explored a range of cognitive functions such as reasoning ability, thinking style, and memory. Overall, the findings align with the hypothesis that beliefs in paranormal phenomena are associated with differences or deficits in cognitive function. For example, a particularly consistent association was found between paranormal beliefs and an intuitive thinking style. The review, so in other words, you don't think logically.
Yeah, so if we all experience the same paranormal experience, we're all thinking the same.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, you just think intuitively. You don't think logically.
Which is, you can have a scientist with you. I mean, I've done investigations with a person who bases everything in science and had the same paranormal experience as them. So how does that explain them? You know what I mean?
Because you can't repeat it in the lab 3 times. It's not scientific.
Scientists are full of shit.
The review found that most of the 71 studies were of good methodological quality, and that quality has improved over time. For instance, most had clear objectives and appropriate study designs. However, certain areas for improvement emerged. For instance, many studies lacked a discussion of their own methodological limitations, and undergraduate students made up a large portion of study participants, meaning that the findings may not necessarily apply to the general population. The authors note that no specific profile of cognitive functioning for paranormal believers has emerged from this literature. They suggest that future research could not only address the methodological weaknesses they observed, but also explore the possibility that paranormal beliefs might be associated with a more overarching difference of cognition, which could help explain why past studies have found links with seemingly disparate types of cognitive dysfunction. The authors add, 4 decades of research suggests that belief in the paranormal is linked to our degree of cognitive flexibility and fluid intelligence. However, methodological improvements in future research are required to further our understanding of the relationship. In other words, well, you may be full of shit, but we can't prove it for sure, so we're going to just continue this and not tell you you're full of shit to your face.
Yep.
But I have, and this is the final story of the day,
all right,
a way to prove that scientists are full of shit.
Okay.
And this is how. An appealing invention. Scientists have created an assistive glove with inflatable banana fingers that can grip a Coke can or a tennis ball using an autonomous knitting machine.
Why?
Exactly. This just goes to show you that scientists have nothing to do.
Yeah. Like, I can open my own soda can.
Yep.
If I'm going to play tennis.
Yeah.
I remember buying those tennis balls, three in a tube, and you pop open the tube.
Yep.
I don't need an automated hand. I'm not lazy enough to open something.
Yeah.
Even the laziest of people I've ever met in my life still know how to open up their own soda cans.
Yeah. At first glance at this object, you may be forgiven for mistaking it as a bunch of ripe bananas. It's really stupid. But it's actually a new assistive glove, albeit featuring what its developers call banana fingers.
Assistive for what?
Well, I'll tell you here in a second, Bruiser. It actually does have a use. The glove has been created by researchers from MIT who evidently aren't getting laid, who used an autonomous knitting machine to create it because they needed a reason to bond with grandma, evidently.
First of all, why do we have an autonomous knitting machine when we have grandmas?
That's true. The banana fingers are inflatable, and when pumped up...
Of course they are.
Yes, they are. And when pumped up, they allow the glove to grip objects, including a Coke can or a tennis ball. The team's glove can be worn by a human to supplement finger muscle movement, minimizing the amount of muscle activity needed to complete tasks and motions, MIT explained in a release. Now, you may be thinking, well, this is a substitute for wearing out your wrists and fingers masturbating. I can see where you would come up with that, but...
That's where they are MIT. You said they're not getting laid, so they had to figure out funner ways to touch themselves.
Exactly. But, and this is a proverbial big but in the sentence, this could hold a lot of potential for those with injury, limited mobility, and other traumas to the fingers, they're saying.
Or you just ask for help from somebody.
Oh, there's that.
You interact with humans. I know at MIT, they're not used to that.
Right. They said, while soft pneumatic devices have been developed before, these have a required manual design, which could be laborious. Instead, the MIT researchers developed an autonomous knitting machine called NEWACT that can knit soft pneumatic devices unaided. NEWACT uses a machine knitting process not dissimilar to your grandma's plastic needle knitting. That's where the underwater knitting
needlepoint,
needle point, yeah.
So they're creating machines to take my job.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this machine operates autonomously. The MIT. I feel like I should be playing this while we read this.
Yeah. Do they not know that the reason grandma knits or someone knits is just to forget about the world and focus on what they're doing?
Or maybe to spread a little love.
Yeah, they don't do it so if it's autonomous, you're just sitting there watching a machine do your work.
Exactly. A human designer simply specifies the stitch and sensor design patterns in software to program how the actuator will move, and it can be simulated before printing. The textile piece is knitted by NEWACT using conductive yarn before being fixed to a rubber silicone tube to complete the actuator. Then they hunt down grandmas all over the world and kill them.
This sounds like a great idea until you have man's penis ripped off by automated machine.
That's right, yeah. Until a guy tries to put a schlong in it.
Yep.
Using digital machine knitting, which is a very common manufacturing method in today's textile industry, it enables printing a design in one go, which makes it much more scalable, explained Yayu Luo, lead author of the study. Soft pneumatic actuators are intrinsically compliant and flexible and combined with intelligent materials, blah, 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 blah. Said one of the study leaders, how can I fit my schlong in it? Here's the scary part. Here's the glove before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like a Terminator.
I was going to say, that looks like in Terminator 2 when he goes in the vault and he hits the button and you see the hand and the arm come out.
Here's the glove after.
Oh, come on. That's even scarier.
It is banana fingers.
It is. It looks like banana fingers.
Yeah, banana fingers.
Nothing sexy about that.
No. Nothing at all. So that's how we...
I'd like to touch you with my fingers, please.
It's there's a scientist in the corner going, "Oh, Chiquita! Oh, Chiquita! Oh, Chiquita!"
Too hard. Oh, it ripped it off.
Carmen Miranda. That's how we end today's show.
Folks, AI is trying to kill us.
And scientists are stupid.
Scientists are dumb.
That's all we got. That's how we shoot our load today, folks.
We had a black hole with a silent but deadly.
Yep.
And we ended with scientists making Chiquita a dirty word.
That's it. That's all we got. But by all means, folks, we want to air your Parashare stories. We want to remind you one more time. Send them in. send them in to tim@darknessradio.com or call them in 651-300-4977, 651-300-4977. We'll air them right here on the show, and we'll weigh in on them as well. Want to remind you as well, the UFO Disclosure Symposium is May 27th through the 29th. Time is running out. If you want to go to Vernal, Utah, click on the description. I'm sorry. Click on the link in the description of the show. That's how it goes, Bruiser. And check it out.
It's free to check it out.
That's right. It's free to check it out. There are 4 different packages now. There's 4 packages that you can check out. There's a VIP package that gets you a tour of the Blind Frog Ranch, which is
amazing.
Yeah, which is a lot like the Skywalker Ranch. No, that's
it's like the Skywalker Ranch.
No, it's like the Skinwalker Ranch. Skywalker Ranch you'll never get access to. Neither will you.
But it'd still be cool to go to either one of them.
Yeah. The Skinwalker Ranch. Blind Frog has a lot of the same activities Skinwalker Ranch has. And you're getting a tour of it with the VIP ticket. Also, there is a general admission.
That's worth the money in itself.
Yes, it is. There's a general admission ticket if you go to Vernal, Utah. There is also a ticket that you can watch the entire symposium from home. You may say, well, Tim, why am I going to this Disclosure Symposium? Well, it's right there in the title, Disclosure. You're going to be watching 4 videos that have not been released to the world as of yet, some top secret videos of real live UAP.
It's literally history in the making.
It is.
These 4 have never been seen before. So you are making history watching these videos for the first time.
That's right. It's a newsworthy conference, and you want to be in on it. Lots of guests are going to be there as well that you've heard of before. Dr. Travis Taylor, who is on The Hunt for Skinwalker right now on History Channel, which is airing its 3rd season right now on History Channel, is going to be one of the lead speakers, just to name a few. Micah Hanks, our good friend, is going to be at that conference as well. Dr. Avi Leb, many others are going to be there, and you're going to want to check it out for yourself. Again, that conference going on in Vernal, Utah, May 27th through the 29th. Get your tickets right now. Click on the link in the description of the show. Check it out for yourself. So there you go. That's going to do it for today. Tomorrow, Gods and Monsters.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's always exciting.
Andrew Collins is our guest. We're going to talk with him about that book, much along the lines of Zachariah Stitchin.
Okay.
So we're going to be talking all things Gods and Monsters tomorrow, right here on the best in paranormal talk radio, Darkness Radio. For Beer City Bruiser, I'm Tim Dennis. Folks, join us again tomorrow for that show, Gods and Monsters, right here on Darkness Radio.